conquer and we're going to take some. Is that understood? Yes, sir. That's what we're going to do, sweetheart. We are going to go and get some. All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! What are you? What are you?
The support systems of family and community are an integral part of the holidays for those that are caring for loved ones with special needs. Through the love and diligence of his family, Jeremiah Feliciano was able to live a healthy and productive life despite his rare genetic disease. Read his story and much more in EP's annual Family and Community issue. To read more, sign up for free today at www.epmagazine.com.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel, a knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
I remember a time when I was in a not so good place, and these games and these activities and being able to come and have the camaraderie that we have here, it makes me feel like I'm not alone. There are people here that have been through what I've been through. It makes me feel like I don't know, I'm part of something great.
Just let yourself go. Give it a try.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis. I am a Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reaper's Detailing Power Washing, and my supporters, Cason Shaving Company and Exceptional Parent Magazine. Thank you. So 2025 has started. We're off to a fast start, and I got asked to review a book. And I get asked to review a lot of books and talk to the authors about what they're doing in their story. And, they're all good. I enjoy it. But every now and then a book comes along that makes me go, whoa, this is something different. This is something that, you're not going to see everywhere at all the time, especially when you understand what the purpose of the book is. And so it's my pleasure to talk to Army veteran, author, father, William Stevens, Bill, as you prefer to be called, about his book, The Broken Mirror. Bill, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you very much, Travis. Thank you.
So you sent me the book and said, "Hey, check this out. This is my story, and it's raw and it's real." And I've heard that before, and I'm like, okay, let's see what this is all about. And I started digging into it, and I got very interested because you did a first book, and we're not talking about that one, but you did a first book about your experience in the military and the Army, and then this is kind of like the follow up to give like perspective for the first book. And right off the bat, I noticed, Bill, that this was about and not so much an apology, but like a labor of love for your daughter. So before we get into all that, and we'll come back to that, tell us about Bill, the Army veteran, and how you kind of got to a point where you decided to write this book.
So first book, The Mirror, is therapeutic poetry. And a lot of my friends were saying, hey, there has to be another chapter. Like, why don't you? And I'm like, you can't do that. I got tremors in my left hand. It's not going to happen. Then my publisher, who I rebranded this year on my birthday, June 21st, said, hey, why don't you write this book about your daughter? Why don't you write this? And I'm like, it ain't going to happen. So May 4th, 2024, I'm sitting in my living room listening to some Nine Inch Nails. And it dawned on me.
It's funny you mentioned that because during boot camp, Head Like a Hole was what got me through boot camp.
Wow. So we listened to the really early dark Nine Inch Nails, early Trent Reznor, and I said, you know what? I can't write this. I don't know how to write this. So I use my notes on my phone. That's how the whole thing is written, on my notes. As I'm speaking to you, the words were coming out on the screen. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to do chapters. I'm going to do entries. So periodically, I'm cleaning the house, getting the house ready to sell, and I am walking around talking to my phone, and the words are coming out. So I basically wrote like the beginning, like spoke to my phone about the beginning, what I'm going to do. And then I sat out in my garage in a rainstorm and wrote the ending of my book, like the final portion. And I'm here saying, well, I'm writing the final portion because I don't know what entries are first, So I started putting the whole puzzle piece together. And when you saw, it's all ended, it's all done for my daughter. Like I did it because my kid carries on my legacy of the Stevens name. And I thought I would leave something behind. Like all my royalties and everything go to my daughter's private account. I don't see one royalty from my publisher. So if something happens to me, because I'm 55, I never know what's going to happen. You never know there's no tomorrow. There's no guarantee for tomorrow. So I want to leave something for her. And I want her to know that just because your dad was a terrible father in the beginning, he's now trying to help people with the same stuff that he has, the same illness. And her being Gen Z, I don't think she really understands that because like everything has to be audio, or have to watch a video. And now we're working in November, we're going to go audio and Kindle for both books. Yeah, so it's not a cheap process, and I'm using my own money for it, but they guarantee, they guarantee that it'll be done. So yeah, I started going through it, and I have two friends. My friend John Hall, who's a Purple Heart recipient. I'm sure you read the beginning.
Yeah.
The preface and the forward, and then my friend who helped me through my divorce, who was my security director before this other guy came on board and left me go. But he helped me through my divorce, and I asked him. I said, I had two veterans do the beginning of The Mirror, so I wanted two Pacific veterans who are with me on this journey. to do the forward and the preface, and they agreed to do it. The one he recommended, he's like, if I'm going to put my name in this book with all the stuff that he does for, I'll just say the government, I'll use any of my government friends, use them as my backbone. That's all I'm going to say. So I don't call anybody out. They're my backbone.
Sure.
So he said, you will send this to the PRB if you're going to put my name in this book, to the Pentagon Review Board.
Sure.
So we agreed, and I started doing entries, and I sent the manuscript to them, and they were floored. Like, they were like, this came from you? I was like, yeah. And they're like, are you sure you want to write this? Like, you sure you want to put this out? I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of people out there that are worse off than I am. And I want to help people that are transitioning from the military into the civilian sector, just almost like a 101 version,
Yeah.
to help them, like with the resume thing and all that. Like, I learned so much stuff working for the civilian government, and then I learned that there's a lot of flaws in the civilian government that I wanted to help call out, because I didn't agree with policy and procedures of being a security specialist. And I guess that terminated me after 16 years.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like I'm trying to get the last laugh, but I want people to know that there are career killers out there, or people that will block your careers because of you disclose. You ever go on and fill out an application that says, are you a veteran? Do you have some type of disability? And you fill it out, and they're like, okay. And you never hear about it ever again. But then when you go to get hired by HR, you have to fill out certain things because you have a high security clearance or whatever clearance you have, and you disclose that. But then maybe 3 weeks later, people are targeting you, or you go for a promotion and you don't get that promotion, even though you qualify for it. They're not going to tell you why you didn't get that promotion, but put the puzzle together.
Tell me about your Army career. What was that like, Bill?
At first, everything was cool. Like, had a weird child bringing. My dad. So I joined the Army when I was 18.
Okay.
Right out of high school. Graduated June. Was in basic training in October. Yeah. Was in a cohort unit for field artillery at basic and training and AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Went straight to Germany. Not even a year later, I'm sitting at the fort in Saudi Arabia. We're getting ready to go to combat. So as a private, I'm not told anything. We just go. And, seeing what I saw while I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and also provide the comfort. I was there for the whole long haul. I wasn't there just for the war. I think the hardest thing was, like, we weren't even trained as a unit. Like, we went to the field and stuff, but to step off the airplane and be in that environment and live in that environment, like, most of it was survival.
Oh, really?
And then when we heard that before they went over the LD, line of departure, we were forward of the 1st Armored Division, our battery. So we were kind of like, I don't want to say a suicide mission, but we took all the indirect fire and provided indirect fire before the 1st Armored Division 7 Corps crossed over the LD. So made it through that, got to see the highway of hell or the highway of death, and that definitely opened my eyes what field artillery and white phosphorus does to things. Seeing skeletized human beings and stuff like that, that'll give you a wide awake of what your job entails.
Yeah.
And how quick you can unalive people without even seeing them. So then Fort Carson, Korea, Fort Carson, Korea, Fort Lewis. I think that's where really the PTSD kicked in. I was a gunnery sergeant.
Now, why so? Now, were you Marine Corps or Army?
I was in the Army.
So
I was U.S. Army Field Artillery.
But so you were sergeant first class?
Not yet. I was promotable. No, I was a staff sergeant.
Then
I
you
was a
became a sergeant.
gunnery. I was a gunnery sergeant. So in the Field Artillery, you have the platoon sergeant
Okay.
and the gunnery sergeant. So a gunnery sergeant can be a staff sergeant promotable, or a sergeant first class.
Gotcha.
So I tend to hide my anger or frustration from people,
Okay.
but I was a barracks rat. They wouldn't let me live off post because I was single. So whenever someone made me mad or something like that, I had this platoon sergeant that didn't like me. He had an accent, and his favorite word to me was he would call me the MF. MF this, MF that. I didn't like that too much. So I told him, I said, I'm not going to be too many of those anymore. You calling me out in front of the soldiers. So we were transitioning from palletized loading system, like the Paladin, like a self-propelled, to the 1908. I had never been light in my entire life. And we were in the motor pool, and soldiers went to chow, went to lunch, and I was in the Connex cleaning stuff, like helping the soldiers clean. Like, I wasn't one of those kind of leaders that stand there with my arms folded. So while they were gone, I was cleaning, and he came up and he approached me. And I'm just going to say that we had an altercation, and I ended up getting relieved. So they sent me to First Corps, where I was now embedded with females. I had never ever been with females or people that were kind of like broke, like handicap, like, cast and profiles. So I was in a unit of profiles, and I went to see the post sergeant major, and he said, not all leaders deserve to be leaders. So you're pretty hardcore, and we want to like level that down. So they made me a museum. They put me in the First Corps Museum at Fort Lewis as a tour guide. And going from being hardcore to a tour guide, and then also trying to go out there and give physical training to people that aren't used to the training that we were doing. They told me I would never give physical training again because I broke them off. But being in the museum, I learned like military history. They let me build an Audie Murphy exhibit while I was there. Like, I'm Sergeant Audie Murphy. Yeah, if you go to Fort Lewis, you'll see they have an Audie Murphy exhibit because of me. And I got with the curator, and we built this thing because Audie Murphy did a lot of time at Fort Lewis. I don't know if you know that or not, but
I didn't.
Yeah, so I'm like, we're at the Fort Lewis Museum, and they have nothing here on Audie Murphy. So they like developed this little figure and all this stuff, and so I was inducted in 1997. I was the only single staff sergeant to get inducted. Everybody else had a family. But at Fort Lewis, we had to represent. So at first, I believe when I came on board, the people that were working there, they were kind of like, civilian clothes. So we changed that we went to Class Bs and stuff. So we were like tour guides. So we had to learn all the exhibits. We had to learn everything. So, and when it came time to come around for me to see about counseling, I had to go to First Corps headquarters, and I met a field artillery colonel. And I was like, who is this guy? And we sat down, we had a long conversation, and I'm like, you think this is going to hinder my career? And he's like, you think this is going to hinder my career where I'm at right now? And we were thinking, like, I'm like, so he wrote my review, and next thing I know, the promotion list came out, and I was number 62 on the list in the entire Army.
Oh, wow.
out of staff sergeant, and I was the only one in my battalion from that battalion I left that made the list. So I was trying to figure out. They gave me a bad NCOER for the record, but let's just say they didn't know how to write it. If it's not written properly, it's not going to go for the record. So I think God was with me on that one. So, long story short, I got promoted to sergeant first class at the museum. Got orders to go to Fort Riley. Was at Fort Riley. Saw the 9/11 thing happen on TV with my platoon. They made me a platoon sergeant. I was trying to hide all that stuff from the past, so that people wouldn't know what was going on with me in the past. Trying to be, this new image of myself. Went to multiple desert deployments at Carson and Riley and Lewis, those intrinsic action things that they call short deployments, like 3 months to Kuwait. And then that was it right there. Like we saw 9/11 and I knew shortly we were going to combat. So as a platoon sergeant, that's like your dream, take your platoon to combat. But I did not know that they had me targeted. They had a new groomed sergeant first class who was eventually going to take over my position. And I didn't know that once we were in Kuwait. But because I've already had combat under my belt, I was the only one in my platoon wearing a 1st Armored Division combat patch. Everybody else we were all in 1st Armored Division, but I was the only one. And I guess my training techniques were kind of hard because like I made my guys wear chemical suits all the time in Kuwait. Because I always knew that, that the Iraqi Republican Guard or Saddam or whatever, they're kind of said biological agents once something,
Yeah.
So I trained beyond the standard and got an altercation with a soldier of a different color. And he took a swing at me and I choked him. I learned how to use close quarters combat while I was in Korea. I went to that course and hit him with the Larinac shot. Next thing I know, I'm standing in front of the sergeant major. And he's like, well, you got a new job. You're going to be the retention NCO. So I'm like, wow, man. Here I am getting ready to go to combat and I'm going to be a retention NCO. So I met the acting retention guy and he is already ready, booked on a flight, go back to Kansas. And they were like, he gave me a book, like a case with a tablet in it and a whole list of people to re-enlist. And it's like selling a product, But here I am, a jerk of a platoon sergeant that nobody liked. And then I have to go out and like cater to these kids and try to sell the Army product to them. Man, our re-enlistment numbers were down quite at first. Because when we got to Iraq, people feared me because I would walk into the cafeteria or the dining facility that we had, and they would run because they knew I was there to get numbers. And I told my sergeant major, I learned soldiers are not numbers, sitting down with them and talking to them, and I got with my sergeant major because I was like the advisor to the colonel and the sergeant major. And he's like, you got to make mission. And I'm like, how are we going to make mission? Like none of these guys, there's no bonuses or anything, So I taught myself re-enlistment. Like I would volunteer and go on like convoys to the brigade and talk to the career counselors. Like I'm not certified to be a retention. I never had retention school or anything. And then they were like, wow, this guy's trying to make mission. And it wasn't even trying about mission, like I took the MWR funds and got coins and flags and hats and t-shirts. And my sergeant major was like, hey, the MWR fund is broke. I'm like, yeah, because you all don't use it. And I use it for retention stuff. And then I asked to have an office and they were like, you need to find your own office. And I got with contractors, whatever they are, Turkish, whatever they were. They showed me a bombed out area near the internet cafe. I had them run a line into the internet cafe and I started like making my own thing. Like, I had a desk, I had an old blown up plant and everything and some rocks and stuff people could sit on. And I said, look, if you re-enlist, we'll give you this option and we'll try to get your job changed from being field artillery. And it's just the way you talk to people, it's not selling that product, but like I wasn't trying to lie to anybody because like I was lied when I came in, they were like, oh, look at this pretty lake firing guns over. And, it wasn't like that when I got to Hornsfeld, Germany or whatever. But long story short, I would let these guys talk to their families right in front of me, about re-enlistment options. And then eventually 20,000 came up, tax-free bonus. And I was re-enlisting people left and right. And first mission I didn't make, second, third, and fourth, we made, and I was 150% over the reenlistment once we left.
So you were good at your job.
Yeah, I was real good at my job. And then we went back, we redeployed, and then we had back-to-back deployments. And I was reaching out to the Department of the Army. I was like, look, I can't do this no more. This is like my 4th deployment.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to go somewhere. And they're like, well, we found you a position in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. I was like, what's there? I was like, New Cumberland, that's 20 miles from my hometown, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. What? So I went there and they made me observer, controller, trainer, like an advisor. So we were like advisors to reserve units, National Guard units. We would evaluate field artillery. Man, I never got to do that. They put me like, they immediately saw that I had a TS, you know, and I was working like the ops. I did all that. I helped, you know, present stuff to the headquarters of the units. And then eventually they put me in the S2. And then finally I went to instructor trainer course and got to certify. And then I was getting ready to go out with my team. They put me on a team. We had 5 teams. They were going to put me out on a team. And then our mission changed. They were like, oh, we're moving from New Cumberland to Fort Dix, New Jersey. You're going to be training soldiers for Iraq and Afghanistan. And let me tell you what, when you got 50 Sergeant First Classes or E7s all trying to, you know, do the same job and get that next level, you know, you all have to work as a team because the mission is to train soldiers for combat. And we made it so realistic, like, you know, we weren't going, we already been there. Yeah. But some of these people that came through the lanes, they were like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to fire that weapon system. I don't know how to do sports. I don't know how to do this. I don't know. You know, we always put them in scenarios because we're like, you know what? Some of you are not coming back. And I always believe good leadership, you survive. Bad leadership, you lose soldiers in combat. Really, you really have to push them. And that's what we did. And I will say, while I was there, 5 of us got selected. 5 of us got selected to go to Iraq. And I was like, well, I hope they don't pick me. And guess what? Being that single guy, they picked me. And we were made a combat arms assessment team. So we went in and we deployed into Iraq, different locations. Some locations were not talked about. And we wrote and collected classified data on the tactics, techniques, and procedures of what the units do because it was changing every day. So I was there. We were there for about 3 or 4 months. We collected the data. We came back to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And then we found out that we were going to be contributing authors to the Center of Army Lessons Learned. I'll send you that one later so that you can look at that. So we made a handbook in 2006, most questioned publication in the Army in 2006. There's a handbook for survival because like they did a lot of research where like units would get attacked, soldiers would get shot, and they would do so much investigations. Like if there was a wrong weapon system and didn't have the right components, they weren't like doing the insurance policy for the soldiers. So what we did is we took pictures, we went to their connexes, we took pictures of all their weapon systems, all their little nuts and bolts, and put it all in the book because like when you deploy, you're supposed to take all that with you. And that whole weapon system is supposed to have that T&E mechanism. You're not supposed to be out there gun-hoing it, you know? And if you don't have the T&E mechanism, you have improper weapon system and properly were unprepared to go out for combat. So when they did like the insurance policies for people who got unalived on the battlefield, if the unit was not 100% combat ready, some of those families weren't getting anything. So that's why we did the book we did. And I came back thinking, man, this is the punch ticket for Master Sergeant. And my sergeant major told me to my face, he's like, you have an attitude problem, you have anger issues, you'll never make it as a senior leader. And I'm like, really? You didn't come visit us while we were in deployment. No one welcomed us back except for our colonel, who was a family guy who loved us to death. You know, and he told me, as long as I'm standing in your way, as long as I'm in the military, you are not going to advance. So I went home and I talked to my fiance. Well, actually, she was my wife then. She's a psych nurse.
Oh, wow.
And we sat down and I said, look, we're going to have a future. I'm at 19 plus years right now. I'm not going nowhere. What should I do? She goes, well, what is your option? I said, well, I saw there's this thing called a Wounded Warrior Transition Unit. I think it's very hard to get in, but I'm going to go and volunteer and go down and get evaluated. And when they evaluated me, it probably took 3 hours. Within a month, I had orders detaching me from my current assignment. So when I was at home, I got to see my daughter born. I had a daughter in 2007 on 15th June 2007. Shortly after that, I went to my sergeant major. I gave them the orders. And I said, I'm out. And they're like, what do you mean you can't leave? I'm like, well, I got orders to go to the Wounded Warrior Transition Unit. And I left and I went to Wounded Warrior Transition Unit. And that was a rude awakening, seeing the soldiers coming off the battlefield.
Wow.
I think the creepiest thing, because I've talked to a few people that know this guy, I'm sitting in a dining facility in uniform because like a lot of them are in civilian clothes. It's called the guest house. A lot of people know what it is, where you go for your meals. This guy walked up. He was like in all black. He sat down. He had a hoodie on. That's why I used the hoodie thing for a reference on my 1821 platform. And I also have a hoodie on right now, so black. He sat down. He looked at me in the face and he goes, "Hey, Sergeant First Class." And the only thing I noticed about him was he had a glass eye, a black glass eye with a gold skull in it. And he said, "We've all been there. Thank you for your service." Got up and left. And it dawned on me. I'm like, I don't think I even got the rights of a soldier anymore. Like, then I started going through the therapy, or they call it training. So I was in an inpatient, outpatient psych unit at Walter Reed. And we were not allowed to use our phones there. We weren't allowed to have phones. I never went home and saw my family, maybe a couple of times during the weekends, but you had to get granted depending on your status. And the reason they put me there is because a lot of people deploying from combat would come home and take stuff out on their families as the enemy or unalive them because they wanted to go back to combat. So I was one of those people that was that bad because my last tour, I didn't have a weapon. Our MTEL was like walkie-talkies and sunglasses. So when we got to Iraq and we fell on units, they would give us sidearms or weapons or up armor Humvees, even if we had a chance. But some of them were like our protection. And I will tell you that we fell on the Puerto Rican National Guard while we were there. And that is the most trained unit I've ever seen in my entire life. We trained them at Fort Dix. They didn't speak no English. That's why we had interpreters. When we got to Iraq, everybody was speaking English because they had just got ambushed the day prior. So all I'm going to say is when we got there and we didn't have no weapons, that was real. Where we went, that was real. Like I had been to combat, and not really shot at, but there we got shot at. We got shot at, and these men and women knew their job. Like they knew their job. This is the most trained reserve or National Guard unit I've ever seen in my life. And I will never look at National Guard and Reserve units as like pogues or anything, because if you don't know it, they're the first to go before active duty. They're the ones that you're going to relieve in place. And I have all respect for those units. And I believe in one army. Now, if you're wearing the same uniform, you're one army. And so I got back, like I said, like I did the training with 12 individuals at Walter Reed. And that was a whole year. So I went through all kinds of classes and stuff for a whole year. Most of the stuff in the psych unit was kind of like charades. I called it romper room because when I walked in and saw the little kid scissors, I'm like, what are these for? And they made us cut out pictures in magazines and display them daily and hold up what was going through our mind. Everybody, all 12 people came out at different times. I probably came out in the middle. Like I wrote in my book about this chaplain came out. Chaplains aren't supposed to carry weapons. They carry Bibles. This guy saw his driver get a bullet to the head. They were ambushed. And he told us the story. I was completely blown away. And then everybody else came out, and we all thought we were there for combat. And then a Marine Corps female came out at the end. She never spoke. She never said anything during the whole time we were there, the whole year. And then she said that something happened to her in a recruiting office. She was brutally assaulted, raped.
Wow.
Her husband was in the next room, and she was there for protection. And she was going through trial to take her chain of command out, what they did to her. Because we were looking at like her ribbon rack, like she had a lot of ribbons. She was a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, but she didn't have no combat ribbons. We're trying to figure this out. And then we all realized PTSD and mental health is not just combat related. It's other stuff, And then I think the whole journey started after I left. I was so drugged up on lithium, man. Prozac. I got home like it was like, you will go get a job. You will take care of your daughter, at certain times. I'm like, man, I'm so tired. I can't even pay attention. But like, there was so much anger. There was so much anger held inside my head. And I think the reason why I wrote The Broken Mirror to apologize to my daughter is because like for 3 years, I think I called my wife at the time and my young daughter the B word. Like it was more mental than physical because like when I was in my upbringing, it was very physical from my dad beating me and hitting my mom with frying pans, my dad hitting my mom, throwing frying pans at him because he's a complete drunk, complete terrible drunk. And I didn't want that to happen to me. Like I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, but here I have come back and I have this psychiatric wife that's a psychiatric nurse who's treating me as a patient in front of my daughter. So for 10 years, I dealt with that non-sexual marriage. My daughter laying between us in bed. I'm here laying, hoping that I die. And then finally in 2014, my daughter asked me to go see grandma at a nursing facility, and my mom died right in front of my daughter. I knew my mom was dead, and that gave me an opportunity because like a couple of days prior to that, I was going to unalive myself in my daughter's bedroom because I was at this peak right here, where I was going to take my life to prove that I did have a meaning. I was a merchandiser. I worked in a freaking prison. I went to Correctional Officers Academy and graduated first in my class as a student first sergeant. But when you go to prison, you can't talk to the inmates. So what do? When you come home, you take it all out on your wife and daughter. And then finally, I was called by the government to come be a security specialist. So from 2009 all the way to 2023, I worked for, I won't say what agency, but I worked with government. And from 9 to 2015, I had one security director. She was in the government for 40 years. From 15 to 23, I had 8 security directors. 8. And the one guy, he came from the Pentagon and he had a whole different mentality. And I knew I was a target because I worked with him in 2016. And when I found out he became my security director in 2021, 22, I believe. Yeah. I knew I was a target and my days were numbered. And, COVID, I was there straight for 2 years by myself. I was like the spearhead of operations. I was the access control administrator while everybody was at home taking care of their families and everything like that. Yeah. So, but just to back up, I moved out of my house, left my wife and my daughter in the house in 2014 to go take care of my dad. So here's this terrible guy that has beaten me, took my money when I deposited it during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, was terrible father to me. And I looked the whole different direction and said, look, this guy's lonely. I'm going to take care of him. So from 14 to 17, I took care of him. And then in 17, he had a major stroke, fell off the couch. I don't blame it on myself, but I was there every day. Like I didn't have no social life from 14 to 17. I was there to take care of my dad. And then I realized after he died, I'm sitting in their empty apartment. And I don't know if you've ever gone through that process where you have to sit through your parents' empty apartment and go through all their stuff to get rid of, and you find letters that you wrote when you were a private, you know, and pictures of girls that you wanted to marry back then, and they kept all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I got this manuscript. I need to put a message out because there's going to be other people that deal with this. So I wrote a book about therapeutic poetry, and it was devoted to veterans. And then my publisher went under in 2020. Book Venture got a nice old rating of 1.4 on the Better Business Bureau. So they took all my royalties along with other authors. I didn't see one royalty at all. So I branded under a new publisher, which I won't name because they let me brand under my name. That's what's cool is they don't want credit for it. But it was a lot cheaper than $3,000 contract that I'm doing now. And like they're letting me put my message out. You know, I don't have to go through them for authorization and stuff because I'm not really contracted to do anything. So I'm doing my own marketing. I don't need my publisher to do marketing for me. So basically, we're at May where, well, actually, I get terminated from the government, civilian government in 2023. I filed for disability retirement. I learned that 12% of disability retirements in the entire DoD are only approved. And mine was approved without a lawyer because I'm the one that stayed up at like 2 and 3 in the morning trying to do this paperwork that I had no idea. But let's just say I said my brain's the backbone. I knew security specialists and people at high level that helped me with the verbiage because I could never figure that out. And I submitted it all to them, and they said, you need to submit this to the HR at headquarters, whatever branch. And I had someone assigned to me from Hawaii who was teleworking. And because like during the COVID, they wouldn't let them work at the headquarters office. So this girl, we talked at night, late nights. We talked on the phone and communicated. And she said, wow, you only have 3 mistakes. And they're only the insurance stuff about your kid. She goes, I don't know how you did this. She goes, there's no mistakes. Like I FedEx my stuff to them, to the branch overnight. And it was approved within probably 6 months. In August, so I was fired and terminated in April. Disability retirement approved in August. Started getting paid in September. So now I'm 100%. I'm retired from the Army. I get disability retirement from the branch that I left, and I don't get SS security, Social Security because they denied it. And I work as a flex courier for a hospital. I deliver blood specimens and pick up specimens. Like right after this interview, I got to right to work. They called me in. So, but it's nice to interact and network with people because I learned the whole journey. Networking is the key to your success. Yeah. If you don't network, you won't get nowhere. And I will tell you that the person who wrote the foreword to my book, he has been the key. I'm just going to say TJ. He's probably listening. He worked very high government official. Went above and beyond to do the forward. And then my friend John, who's a Purple Heart recipient, he went to like Connecticut in his RV to event to write you could see how he wrote that. Yeah. You know, I asked the 2 perfect people to write that to introduce me, who I am. And then like the editorial that you read at the end. Yes. That guy has 39 years of editorial experience with newspapers. And while he was editing, his wife had a heart attack. So then I submitted it to the guy who did the forward, and he made it look a book format. Like we wouldn't even be there if he didn't do that right now. Because like right now, as we speak, my book is being printed. And I will have a copy of it tomorrow or tomorrow. I'm supposed to have a copy tomorrow. It's supposed to be delivered or Saturday because I have the podcast with People's Patriot Project. Oh, nice. And I'm going to actually have that book in my hand to show them because like I want people to see and have that message. So I think that wraps up the Army story. people with PTSD, they speak a long time.
No problem. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, we're gonna we got like 10 minutes left, so we'll figure this out. But you write the book, and what was your daughter's reaction to the book? Because you're very clear that this is you're trying to explain yourself to your daughter and keep that relationship going. So how did she react when she read the book, or has she read the book?
You mean the new book?
Yes, a new book.
So she's only seen portions of it.
Okay.
She's only seen portions of it and said, "Hey, Dad, maybe you need to do this in audio. I can listen to it in the car." Because like she's a competitive cheerleader. She's a two-time world champ. She's always in practice. She homeschools from Florida, and she is being groomed to be a world coach. So she has no time as a 17-year-old at all. Like she's not involved with boys. If she's not doing that, she's at Disney or Halloween Horror Night.
Yeah.
Like, that's all she does. And she knows that I'm trying to put a message out, and she knows that I have been very sorry because I was a terrible father on her upbringing, not physically, but mentally. And when you were saying about I don't have custody of my daughter.
Okay.
My ex-wife's parents came in and said, "Look, this guy's got PTSD. He could react a different way." So my ex-wife has 100% custody of my daughter. And I only see my daughter when my daughter wants to see me. And now it's been pretty cool because like this bond is getting better. Like she came back 3 weeks ago to see Pitbull. Was planning to stay with her friends and they had COVID. So she stayed here and got to see the house before it sells.
Right.
There was not a lot here, but uh, she drove my vehicle around. I taught her how to drive at 14. I bought her a car. I gave her mom the money to buy a car. So she knows that I will go bread and water for that kid.
Yeah.
Her cheer bill is like 30,000 a year, and she's not getting no education for that. So I pawn out most of that. I help her mom and do whatever I can. And her mom, and we communicate, but we're not on the best terms because, like, at first the child support was $1,500 a month for one kid. Now it's $662 a month, and her mom's kind of upset about that. But you know what? I told her, I said that child support will end when she turns 18 because she's not going to college. I will still help my daughter as much as I can, and that's why the contract is branded where if something happens, my kid better know how to file taxes. Because if the money's coming in and it's going to her, it's going to be under her account and it's going to be considered income.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she holds the Stevens name. No one else holds that name except for me and her. I do have a sibling, but I don't communicate with her because she didn't go to my father's funeral. So there's reasons behind that, but
well, what do you want other veterans to know or learn about your experience dealing with PTSD? You said you had some challenges and you made some mistakes. So what do you want people like me and other people listening and watching to learn?
I believe after watching certain podcasts and listening to like a disgruntled veterans page on Facebook, there's a lot of people that are at their end, but I was there too. And I believe that with networking, uh, individuals, I'm not even going to say the VA because sometimes the VA don't help you. There's a lot of people that are still on the couch that hasn't got VA help. I would definitely say that I believe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I believe that just because your claim got denied, don't feel frustrated. Keep doing it. When I got out of Walter Reed, I was 50%. That was in 2008. I didn't get my 100% until 2022 because I had to prove to the government or to the VA that this hand right here, the medication that I was taking, 3 medication changes, and having the same psychiatrist since 2008, which is a good thing because he batted for me. I don't think anyone else would bat for me. And letters I had written from people that I work with or served with,
Right,
I
right.
submitted all this. I submitted all this and gave it, and still was denied. And then I went to a law firm that a buddy recommended, and I will say it, Jane Dills. Anybody's interested, I can send you the number. They're 99% of their clients for 100% PNT. They took 20% of my back pay, never talked to me ever again, never heard anything from them ever again, and I'm 100% PNT. And I'll never be reviewed, but I still take my medicine. I still have alternative things that I do, like weighted blankets for stress, migraine beanie, so that I don't have to take like sleeping meds or uh, aspirins and stuff like that, or stuff to keep me asleep. I've tried all the remedies, and I think that anyone with PTSD, there's all different types of PTSD. There's all
Right.
kinds of different. There's like 150 different mental illnesses out there, and I believe if you look them up, you'll see that there's new ones coming out every day with the stuff that's going on in this world. I'm not even going to mention that. I'm not even going down that rabbit hole, but I will definitely say that this is something to take with you. If you have PTSD and you go through therapy and you pay for therapy or you go to the gym, the demons are always there. They're not going to go away. And if you think you're one of those people that think bullets bounce off you, wait. One day someone's going to trigger you. And if this book that I put out can be a guideline to help one person, then I have accomplished my mission. Just like my first book. If one person accepts that, I have accomplished my mission. But I believe that the demons are always there. And everybody has some type of traumatic event waiting to come out in them. It doesn't matter if you're 2 years old right now, you're 20 and you witness a horrifying accident. That's trauma. And you could live with that for the rest of your life. So I don't know if me being mentally, or what is it called? Not physically, but mental to my daughter, if that's eventually going to catch up to her, because I know that she has an anger issue, her mom tells me. And she says, yeah, thanks to you, your daughter has an anger issue. She has anger problems. And I also know that my daughter has anxiety. She scratches her skin. And I know that might be from me, I always say that my daughter's not vaccinated or doesn't get any shots. I think she's an anthrax baby. I got the 13 anthrax boost, and I think that's all in her. And I think that's why she doesn't get sick. Knock on wood. She doesn't get any shots. Her mom is a nurse and doesn't let her get any shots. So I believe that what I have has passed on to her, and eventually, something's going to catch up. One day somebody's going to get triggered, and I believe that, you know, even though that you feel like you're the best person, you have the best meds, long-term medication use will affect you, and it has affected me. And like I said, I've been through 3 different medication changes. I think I'm at the peak where I am now. I used to be on 3 different mood or types of medication, no longer on lithium. Don't take lithium. It has very, very major adverse effects to people. It causes major health issues. Prozac comes in different brands and stuff. Just make sure that you Google and you know what you're taking. Sometimes people are taking sugar pills and they don't even know it. Like, don't think that, you're perfect, because no one's perfect. And I believe that, like I said, at the end of the road, the light is starting to open for me. It is. But I still have anger issues. I still have anxiety. I scratch my skin, and I'm borderline diabetic. So like it's, you know, um, everything happens for a reason. And I believe that, if my book can help people transition from the military, and
How can
people you work with are not your friends.
well,
Don't disclose stuff. So I'm just saying, don't disclose stuff. And like I said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, man.
so closing this out, how can people get your book?
So I've discussed with that drop is coming Halloween. That'll be the 20th year I retire from the Army. So that worked out perfect. 31 October, it will drop. I talked to my publisher. It's a little expensive, but it's the best quality. Softback is $39. Hardback is $59. Not like my first book, it's $16, but it's not the best quality. 13 days prior to Halloween, we're going to do pre-order on Amazon. We're also going to do like it's called a trifecta, where like the mirror will break 13 days and show the new cover and veil it on the 13th in the evening of the witching hour on Halloween. So yeah, it'll be available on Halloween on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and Walmart. That's what my publisher told me. So right now, my first book, The Mirror, is on Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and Amazon.
All right. So by the time this show airs, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be able to get the book either direct order or Amazon. I will have those links in the Oscar Mike Radio website post. And again, I've read a lot of books by veterans, but this one hit a little different because of what you talk about in regards to your daughter. And so, Bill, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us. And hopefully you choose to support Bill and what he's doing. And Bill, we look forward to how you continue to serve your fellow veterans and Americans.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on, Travis. And I just want to say one last thing. I hope that anyone that's in my situation or worse, if they read my book, it can get them out of that situation.
Absolutely.
There's all kinds of decompressions and stuff like that, as you read in the book, on mental health and stuff like that. So it's been an honor. Remember, suicide awareness, 22 a day.
Absolutely.
As we end this month. So that's why I wear this hat. I wear this hat for a reason, not for, a prop.
Sure. And we should never forget. Absolutely. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Army Sergeant First Class William Stevens. He wrote The Broken Mirror. Check out the book on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, everywhere else. And Bill, again, thank you for coming on and talking with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We say Oscar Mike Radio, we are mission flight. We will see you next time. You take care. Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinista One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.